What's up YouTube, CharminEXSoft here coming at you guys with another Friday the 13th a game video, and today we're going to be talking a lot about Jason Voorhees and some of the other game mechanics in greater detail. So for those of you who don't already know, I had the pleasure of speaking with Wes Keltner over at Gun Media on Skype. He's one of the co-creators of the Friday the 13th a game, and he filled me in on a lot of information about this game, some of which you've probably never heard before. Also, I'm excited to say that almost every question you all submitted on my last video and on Reddit was able to be answered, which is great, but since there were so many questions able to be answered, and for the sake of time in this video, I have decided to do a couple of different videos on the different subject topics, i.e. things like counselors, maps and structures, escapes and evasions, traps, and more. So stay tuned to my channel as the answers to those kinds of questions will be answered in more detail in later videos coming in the next few days. Also, don't forget the Slasher Backer is still live right now where you can pre-order this game for as low as $30. So if you have not pre-ordered or purchased your exclusive Slasher Backer DLC yet, and you would still like to do that, then at any time during this video, just go ahead and click on the little Jason dude in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, and he will be sure to guide you safely through Camp Crystal Lake to the correct place to do so. Trust me, he told me he would do it safely. I don't know. Also, just as a reminder, all proceeds gained from the Slasher Backer go towards bringing us more great content for this game before it launches, including things like single player. So if you want more great content to come to this game, and possibly things like single player, then make sure you place your pre-orders on the Slasher Backer website at f13game.com and not at your local GameStop or on your consoles and things of that nature. This way you can make your money work for you and not against you. I mean, I'm sure everyone will appreciate it. So without further ado, let's talk about Jason Voorhees and that gameplay trailer we saw at E3.
Fine.
So right off the bat, we're going to pause it as you see Jason standing in a graveyard ready to hunt down all the counselors in this area as he's being egged on by the voice of his mother, Pamela Voorhees, in his head. Now, a few things to note before we move further into gameplay. The guys over at Gun Media and IllFonic have taken so much time and attention to detail in this game that even the holes in each Jason mask are to scale to the millimeter for the one scene in the actual movie. Something else that's really cool is that Jason's face is fully modeled under each of the mask and his sack, as his mask can be removed during the gameplay, but there's no details given yet as to how this feat can be accomplished. Also, Wes Keltner was able to confirm with me that the current Jasons we will see available to be played in the game at launch will be from the movies 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So each of the Jasons, their starting weapon is also based off the movie that they were in. So for, say, Jason 2 might have something like a pitchfork of some sort, or Jason 6 would have maybe that iron cemetery fence spike, or Jason from the 3, he might have an axe, or Jason 7 might have a machete, so on and so forth. So you kind of get how that works. As of right now, there's a good chance that Jason from part 3 will be the Jason that everyone starts with on day 1, and the others will have to be unlocked through gameplay. The cool thing is unlocking different Jasons, counselors, weapons, and clothing skins and items are all done universally. So no matter who you're playing as, whether it be Jason or one of the counselors, you are gaining XP for all of them, meaning you could unlock a new Jason without ever playing the role of Jason Voorhees in the game at all. So you see how that works. That's a pretty cool system. It's kind of a good balance there. If you're stuck being counselors all the time, but you want to unlock a certain Jason, you're still gaining XP to unlock that. So that's really cool. Now let's move on to Jason's abilities. As we can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, Jason has 4 main abilities. They are Sense, marked by an A button, Shift, marked by the X button, Morph, marked by the B button, and Rage, marked by the Y button. Now, a lot of you will be happy to hear that this gameplay footage was kind of last minute, as Gun Media was not planning on attending E3 this year, but because they had a tremendous amount of requests from the fans and the media to attend about 30-40 days prior to the event, they tuned up Jason to 11 and put in certain placeholders so that they were able to show us some sort of gameplay footage. Remember, this footage is an early alpha. It's not even a full alpha or any representation of the final product. So don't worry. I will be explaining to you guys all of this footage and identifying you guys all these placeholders so that you can better understand how this will work at launch. So to start off, Wes Keltner confirmed that at the start of every match, yes, I said every match, Jason only spawns with one ability, not all four. So it's believed to be that this ability will be Morph, and the other abilities will be unlocked through the match by doing other things like instilling fear or killing counselors quickly, things of that nature. The rate in which you unlock Jason's abilities is determined by how well you are doing. So for example, you could stand in one place, not moving at all, and still unlock Jason's abilities, but this will take a long time to do and is not recommended. With that being said, matches can take up to 15 to 20 minutes in length, and for, say, trolls or weaker Jason players that either don't want to or honestly just can't find counselors at all, there is a special win condition put in place if the matches are exceeding these limits, and the counselors basically would automatically win. Now, maps, when we're talking about the size of these maps, they are roughly estimated to be about the size of, say, a Battlefield Conquest large map, and currently it takes Jason about 7 to 8 minutes in real time to walk completely across the map from one end to the other, so you better get to stepping with Jason. It's also important to note that Jason is walking, not running in this video, and every Jason has been motion captured using the real actor Kane Hodder, who played the role of Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th Part 7, 8, 9, and Jason X. Now, since Kane Hodder never ran in any of his movies, I would not expect to see any of the Jasons in the game to be running either. With that being said, if you are a big Friday the 13th fan like myself, you will know that Jasons in 2, 3, and 4, not played by Kane, did in fact run in the movies. Knowing that Jasons 2 and 3 are in this game and how much attention that Gun Media has put into the game, like even with, like I was saying, about the holes in Jason's mask scaled down to the millimeter, I'm hoping that we might be able to see Jasons 2 and 3 have the ability to run, but that's just my opinion right there. Okay, so back to the trailer. As Jason walks up, you see sound blips in the distance. These are movements of counselors running around that have a very low stealth skill. That's why they're registered from across the map. The more noise you make, the more Jason will see your direction. Jason then uses his morph ability, which allows him to pick any location on the map he wants to morph. But notice you don't see any counselor icons at all on this map. Now, Wes Keltner has told me that in the game we could potentially see large inaccurate circles appearing on this map similar to the sound blips we saw in the beginning. Now, these blips could cover a very wide area, so even like an entire campground. They're not pinpoint accurate at all and can even have a few seconds of delay on them, so that it's not like a huge big accurate thing for Jason to use to find counselors. This ability is used to help Jason get a better idea where the counselors are located, and it can put him somewhere in that ballpark location, since this ability actually has kind of a lengthy cooldown when it's on normal conditions and not tuned up to 11. So this ability can't basically just be spammed all over the place. So now after we see Jason morph to the cabin, he sees another counselor standing outside. As you can see by the thin red outline, Jason is using his next ability called Shift, which will allow him to cover short distances really quickly, allowing him to quickly catch up to this counselor and perform his chiropractic duties. Do note that the puffs of smoke that you see while Jason is using these abilities will also be changed, as it is a placeholder and Jason is not a ninja throwing smoke pellets. Now, as Jason turns, you see a sound blip coming from inside the house, and Jason then uses his sense ability to attempt to scan for the fear of counselors nearby. Note that when he activates this ability, the entire house lights up red. This will not happen in the full game, as it is a placeholder as well. Instead, it's going to be changed to something a little bit more subtler. Now, it's important to note that Jason does not have X-ray vision. He cannot see through walls to identify how many counselors are inside the house or see what the counselors are doing inside the house while he's using this ability. He can only sense the fear of the counselors in the house, and because a counselor just saw Jason crack that person's back on that rock through the window, then there is fear in that building and it's rising and Jason can see it. Now, if a counselor has no fear at all, this ability will not work on the counselors. Now, Jason can still use it, but nobody is going to show up. Things that will cause fear, for example, are like things like taking off into the woods without a flashlight, being alone by yourself, seeing Jason murder someone. The more brutal the kill is, the more fear you're going to instill, and even making horrible, dumb horror movie decisions. So if you're like, hey, what was that sound over there? I don't know. Let me go check it out. That's a dumb decision. Don't do that. That's going to make your fear go through the roof, okay? Like, you want to avoid those things. Stay away from the sounds you hear in the woods. Don't go running into them. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Now, back to this ability. It's very different from the other abilities in how it is to be used. Now, the longer you hold it down, the more it focuses, meaning you can cancel it and save some of its power in reserve. So again, the longer you hold it down, the more it focuses on the counselor, giving you a full outline of them, but the more you use it up, the less you have in reserve, and you'll have to wait longer for it to recharge. Whereas if you only tap it for, say, just a second, you might see a quick flash of them like a ghost or something, just kind of split off in the distance. But it might help give you some direction, but keep in mind that if you're doing this and the counselor is doing what they should be doing and maybe changing directions every now and then, you might get disoriented and they could easily give you the slip as you're not constantly focusing on their location. Okay, so back to the video though. As Jason walks up to the window, he's allowing the counselors to see him, which again causes more fear as he approaches. So he quickly uses Morph again to outsmart the counselor running out the back door, moving into another brutal execution, after which Jason will then use his sense ability again to locate the other counselor.
That's my boy. Hunt them down and make them pay.
Now let's switch over to the counselor here for a few. As we can see, this counselor is showing fear right away. He's looking over his shoulder, he's cringing in fear, and even slightly mumbles for a second. The character effects for fear are uncontrollable by you. The more scared your character is, the more he will show it, and in extreme cases, he will even stumble and fall over when trying to run, or he will even mumble and talk out loud to himself, saying things like, please don't see me, or no, don't look over here, things of that nature. As an important note to keep the game more immersive, there will be no fear bar on the screen to identify your counselor's fear level. Instead, you will have to rely purely on your counselor's body language and facial expressions to identify how much fear you've taken on, which is one of the reasons why this game is in third person instead of first. Now, another really interesting reason that this game is in third person instead of first is because of its brutality factor, as I like to call it. Wes Keltner has told me that Jason does not have to pick you up or slam you around like you see in this video to kill you. Instead, he can in fact free swing his weapon, and they even have a full combat system in play that is similar to, say, that of Dark Souls, where it's a bit slow and methodical and has like lock-on cameras and such, and Jason can even dismember you, like even chopping off your freaking arms and stuff. So if you're in first-person view, you would not be able to see any of that, and it would take away from the experience. Wes Keltner would not comment on if you could survive such an attack running around with only, say, one arm, for example, or doing first aid or anything like that, but it would be really interesting to see how this would work in the game if you could do that. So fingers crossed for that one, guys. Now, as I've also said in my other videos, Jason is in fact OP, but he's supposed to be OP. I mean, he's Jason, but he can also be killed as well, but there's no details on how to do that, except for it's not an easy procedure and it's not recommended to try doing. Now, to put this into perspective, Wes Keltner has told me that like one jock with a baseball bat cannot kill Jason. In fact, he's even told me that on their own personal play tests, with the people who've built the game here we're talking about, only like 1 out of every 75 matches will Jason actually be successfully killed. So yeah, that just gives you this idea. This is not a go kill Jason game. This is a run from Jason. This is terrifying, scared. Let's go. We need to leave. Now, as we get back to the video and the counselor starts moving, you can see that he first turns on a flashlight and begins to run down the path towards more light to reduce his fear. Now, as Jason approaches, he hears his footsteps getting closer, and his fear begins to spike as shown by his body language. Jason picks up the counselor, and in an attempt to kill him, the counselor breaks free and runs away. As he runs, he turns on his flashlight again and tries to stay on the path to attempt to reduce even more fear level, but it's too late because Jason has heard his direction and he's used his sensibility, and now he's keeping track of him as he runs along. Now, here is where things start getting really interesting. As you can see, the counselor has the option to lock the door. Wes Keltner has also informed me counselors also can barricade doors and windows using things like furniture or other stuff inside the house, and doing these things will help reduce your fear levels. So some other ways to reduce fear levels are things like staying on paths, getting with groups of people, not being alone, picking up weapons, getting to hiding spots, looking for light sources, basically just making smart decisions. So try to keep them in mind. Now, this counselor, you will see as he's going to turn on the radio, he's trying to mask the sound of Jason so that he can't hone in on his location. And he also opens up a window, which is hoping to make Jason believe that he's jumped outside. And lastly, the counselor then goes to hide under the bed. Now, these are all good choices, so it's going to reduce his fear level. Now, what's really interesting, and Wes Keltner confirmed this for me, and I think it's really cool, is that right now, counselors cannot be seen at all while underneath beds. I know there's been a lot of speculation going on about this topic, but Jason can't actually see the counselors underneath the bed. He would only be able to hear them. Like, no part of the counselor sticks out underneath the bed, even if the counselor's like looking at Jason or anything like that. There's no way that Jason can see him with plain sight in that aspect. So he's completely hidden. He also did say that they're still playtesting with this a bit, though. He said that they could possibly change this, making beds more of kind of like a last resort hiding spot with a penalty where Jason will be able to see you underneath it, because there are some other hiding spots in the cabins and whatnot, say things like closets, armoires, trunks, and all kinds of other stuff. But for me personally, I hope they don't change that, because I would probably just never use a bed then to hide under, because with a penalty like that, I just don't think I'd ever use it. And I don't think a lot of other players would use it then if Jason could just see you hiding underneath there. And it honestly, in my opinion, would make, Jason's searching area a lot smaller. He just basically wouldn't worry about the beds because nobody's really using them. He would just search everywhere else. So I hope they don't change that, but we'll just see what happens. So as you can see, Jason comes to the window and the counselor sees him, so his fear should be on the rise at this point. The door is locked, so the player controlling Jason uses his rage ability, which will allow him to burst right through doors and things of that nature. This ability is the last one that you will unlock, and it's even said that you may not unlock it at all in a match. Now, this rage ability is the most powerful ability that Jason has, basically. And not only can you burst through doors, but Wes Keltner has also confirmed that every interior has certain walls that can be busted through as well, so in Jason's rage mode. So, like, you literally can just run through these walls and stuff like that. Well, some of these walls. And Jason, for example, like, say if he knew you were on the other side of the wall, he could punch his arms through the wall, basically bear hugging you and then yanking you right through the wall. Like, that's pretty crazy right there. That's awesome. Now, he would not comment on how long the ability would last once activated, but he did say that if used, you may only get one use out of it the entire match. This leads me to believe that this ability has a very, very, very long cooldown to keep balance in this game, which is awesome. Now, at this point, Jason goes over and destroys the radio, blocking his sound waves to attempt to hear the sound from the counselor, since he does not know where he is. And then he turns to leave, but before he leaves, he stops and looks around, attempting to instill fear once again. Now, as Jason kind of goes ahead and gets closer to the beds, the counselor's fear starts to go up a little bit as you can hear him start to mumble first off, and then Jason is going to go ahead and get that kill animation, destroying him underneath that bed. Now, what you don't see here is that Jason actually has two options. He has a check option and a stab option. Now, Jason can pretty much stab through almost any object in this house, like beds, closets, trunks, etc. Anywhere that he thinks that a counselor could be hiding, he can go ahead and put his weapon straight through it, trying to go ahead and kill him. Now, if he's wrong, though, to prevent him just from running around stabbing all over the place, they've given Jason a penalty. So if he picks the wrong object and he puts his weapon through it, that weapon's going to get stuck in that object, which is going to force him to take time to dislodge this weapon from that object, allowing you a chance as a counselor to try to escape. So, see, they're bringing in a lot of things to this game, trying to instill balance and make it fun, playable not only as Jason, but as the counselors as well. Well, guys, that about wraps it up on this Jason Voorhees video, but there's plenty more information on the way in the coming days, so there's still a lot of questions on different topics I've yet to answer, but will soon be doing so in my next few videos, so just kind of hang in there. Now, but I want to hear from what you guys are thinking now that you've seen this video. I want to know what you guys are thinking about this game now that there's more confusion that's been being cleared up here. And I really want to know what you guys think about that bed mechanic. Do you think that Jason should be able to see the counselors underneath the bed, or do you think that it's awesome that the counselors are completely hidden? But anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope it helped you out. And feel free to slap the like button down below to join the Charminati today, simply by subscribing to my channel. And you guys can also feel free to comment below and follow me on Twitter to stay up to date with all my YouTube videos. I'm CharminEXSoft, and as always, thanks for watching, and y'all come back now, you hear?